So in today's session, we'll be covering kind of these following topics. First, we're going to start off, I'll be covering kind of the rise of AI in marketing, which I'll just share some statistics that give a baseline for how it's being used by marketing teams today. Then we'll turn it over to Kyle and Amrita to discuss the 5 do's of using AI for marketing. That section will just explain how you can kind of embrace AI and its different use cases for better marketing outcomes. And then our guests will kind of pivot over to the 5 don'ts of using AI for marketing. So specifically, how to kind of avoid those common pitfalls and missteps when using AI, since it is so new and we're still learning how to use it appropriately. And finally, our guests will have some closing remarks about the future of AI, and then we'll have to save some time to answer all of your questions. So our first guest today is Kyle Coleman. Kyle is currently the Chief Marketing Officer at Copy.ai, and AI-powered content generation built for marketing and sales teams specifically. In this role and previously as VP of Marketing at Clary, Kyle leverages his expertise across like marketing and sales to just scale growth with the help of a small team, but also using his own tool. So thanks for joining us today, Kyle.
Pleasure being here, Scott. Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this. I've been in B2B sales and marketing for about a dozen years. I started in business intelligence, was at a company for about 6 years. Then I was in revenue intelligence for about 5 years. And now I'm in artificial intelligence. So we'll see how long this one lasts. I just can't shake it. The only intelligence I don't have is my own. But in my categories, I seem to be doing pretty well. So I'm very excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Great. Well, welcome. And our next guest is Amrita Mathur. Amrita is currently the VP of Marketing at ClickUp, an all-in-one productivity platform. So from this role and previous experience at B2B design agency Superside, Amrita knows exactly what it takes to grow teams and revenue at these high-growth startups. And especially relevant, ClickUp's newest product, ClickUp Brain, kind of infuses AI into marketers' everyday lives to help automate admin tasks. So it's very relevant to welcome her here. So thanks for joining us today, Amrita.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, and super stoked to hear what the audience has to say. And AI has obviously permeated all of our lives, and there's so many use cases. I'm a little bit obsessed with it since I ended up being roped into launching our AI product. So you just get this crazy boot camp of what everything that's out there, et cetera. So that's been exciting.
Awesome. Well, cool. Yeah. Awesome. We'll get started here. But first, before we kind of get into the main 10 do's and don'ts, I really wanted to just take a moment to cover a quick overview of how AI is currently being used in marketing today. I have some cool stats, starting with one of the big ones, which is just that nearly 85% of marketers say they have used AI in the workplace already today. So this actually was found from a foundation survey conducted in January earlier this year. So as 2024 has progressed, AI has been integrated to more and more software beyond just the initial Chat GPT. So it's safe to assume this percentage has already just increased from this survey. And in the survey, they also ranked the reasons for this heavy adoption, with the majority of marketers ranking time savings as the key benefit. This is pretty unsurprising since most of the key use cases are focused on, quickly generating something that would otherwise take a human a decent amount of time to create. However, as AI continues to kind of become more advanced and more commonplace in different softwares and in different use cases, it's likely that it'll continue to unlock these new capabilities for organizations and marketing teams, which is, number 2 on the list here, new capabilities. And that just kind of means finding things that weren't possible before AI was around, which could be things like quickly pulling insights from large sets of data, or predicting customer sentiment, or pulling certain info into an automated workflow that helps, maybe a marketing and sales outreach. So things like that are really kind of being used the most. And specifically for different use cases, the same survey also asks what people are pairing AI with and what use cases are being used most. And kind of unsurprisingly, content creation is currently far and away the most popular use case. This isn't surprising because the big tools like ChatGPT or Copy.ai are both text-based generative tools, and it just makes sense. While that's number one, there's still a lot of other use cases like keyword research, social media usage for email marketing, and lots more, as you can see listed here. And all of those will continue to grow in prevalence as people kind of break down the barriers to using it. So, and all that's really what today's webinar is all about. We want to explore some of the more unique yet like very helpful use cases for AI from a marketing perspective. So that's why I've gathered Amrita and Kyle here, two experts in the field, to talk about it. So without further ado, I'd love to start off by handing it off to Kyle to explain some of the top ways he thinks marketers can use AI to boost marketing effectiveness.
Beautiful. Great intro, Scott. Thank you so much. And you're spot on. The most popular use case far and away is content creation. And so very intentionally, we're not talking about content creation right now. We're talking about AI for account-based marketing. And when a lot of people think about account-based marketing, they think about it, frankly, the wrong way and kind of the lazy way, which is, yeah, we'll create a custom landing page. And all we're going to do is swap that person's logo onto this page. And now we're doing account-based marketing. And like, that ain't it. That ain't it. Real account-based marketing requires a real perspective or a real point of view on what's going on inside of that account. And the way that I think about it and have for a long time is the very same way that SDRs or an outbound team thinks about their outbound messaging, which is orienting it around one of two main things. Number one, where is this company placing bets for growth? And number two, where are they likely going to struggle or be challenged in pursuit of those growth bets? So growth bets and struggles or challenges. Why is that the framing? Because that's what executives care about. Executives don't care about your features, your functionality. I'm sorry, they just don't. They care about themselves and pursuing their strategic initiatives. And if you can research the account to understand what those strategic initiatives are based on SEC filings if they're a public company, or company news, CEO interviews, funding announcements, press releases, product launches, there's no shortage of information out there. It's just hard. It's time consuming to go and do. AI can significantly streamline that process and make it easier for you to collect the insights that you need to create really effective landing pages, create really effective digital ads, create great one-to-one emails, create custom events for the high value accounts that you're targeting, run a real ABM program. And you can do the same thing on the prospect level. And so research, any task that's research oriented, AI is killer at saving a ton of time. And so specifically, I'm seeing a lot of success in our internal ABM program, and I'm seeing a lot of our customers leverage our platform for ABM as well to great effect. So that's my number one on the list.
I love that one, Kyle. It's the number one complaint we hear from no matter where you are in the sales org. Every time, like I do a lot of like demand gen and ABM stuff typically, and in dealing with sales, they're always complaining about, well, there's so much time spent on account research, et cetera, and they always want to outsource that to like marketing or someone else.
Right.
And now, of course, there's like AI tools that can scour the internet and like structure that sort of qualitative data back. So I love that use case. There's like a step like before that as well. At ClickUp, we actually use an AI model to stack rank all of our accounts. We have something like 70,000 signups that happen every single month. And so for us, it's like very important to figure out how do we effectively expand within the accounts that matter, that are ready for expansion. So we use an ML model to kind of help figure that out, stack rank it. And then we use LLMs to like collect all of the data from like our customer success team or support team, all of that stuff. And then we say, oh, for this quarter, here are the top like 200 or 300 accounts we're going to do quote unquote ABM on.
That's amazing. I absolutely love that. I'm going to steal that from you shamelessly. I'll give you credit. That's great stuff.
Cool. I love that. Yeah. And then this is like a bit of a plug in the sense that we always talk about, you know, a lot of people are busy, lives are busy. And my personal pet peeve is that everybody talks about, just similar to the slide that Scott showed, if you want to just go back to it real quick, time savings is like number one. Everyone wants to save time. Everybody wants to potentially save costs. So consolidation, cost savings, all of that matters. But nobody talks about the cognitive load of certain admin tasks. Like I always feel like it's not just that like the admin task is like draining in terms of time. It's literally like I've now used my mental energy to do the thing that's not actually adding as much value as this other thing over here. And for me to like go from an admin task and switch to this other more important task, call it that, there's actually like a huge time delay. And I suspect that there's research that shows that I'm actually not as effective in this other more important task because I'm busy doing this other bullshit stuff. So my personal pet peeve is like, can we just have AI tools that reduce or like expand your mental capacity? That alone is a huge win. And so one of the one of the things that I would love to outsource to the robots is can you run my weekly stand up or my daily stand up? A lot of teams do daily stand ups, particularly dev teams. On our marketing team, we do a weekly one. ClickUp, we have a culture of writing a very robust, thorough weekly report that highlights all of the progress, all of the wins, all of the losses, all of the risks. And that's time consuming. On average, I was spending, even with all of the tools at my disposal, on average, I was spending maybe 2 hours of dedicated time each week to write this like very comprehensive update to our exec team, with charts and graphs and whatever else. And now I can outsource most of that to ClickUp's AI,
Wow.
which is great. And then just like other contextual sort of what I call contextual Q&A. So sometimes I literally want to know, hey, what is the vacation policy in Canada? I'm a Canadian employee. We have different vacation policies, right? Like, what is that? Where do I find it? That whole like knowledge management piece is pretty tough. And of course, like garbage data in, garbage data out, and it's not easily searchable. And so again, AI tools can really help alleviate that. There's tons of amazing out of the box solutions out there. Everything from Notion to Glean to ClickUp solve for a lot of these things. So I'm hoping that more and more companies will adopt this to alleviate that cognitive load for their employees. My favorite little hack is just like automating my stand up. Our ClickUp AI tool just writes it for me. I clean it up a little bit and off it goes. And it takes me like, I don't know, I've timed myself like 2 minutes and like 40 seconds or something.
Wow.
So that's pretty good.
That's incredible. I love that. And again, I'm going to steal that idea. You made me think about like internal comms, Amrita. Like we're launching this campaign, and it takes a lot of time to write the Slack update, write the email update, write the ELT, the leadership team update, all those things. Like if you can use AI to take one input and then waterfall the content out for your internal comms, that's admin work that saves a ton of time. So that's great stuff.
Yeah, and you can just feed the format to the AI tool, and then it just retains that information. Yeah, that's actually
100%.
that's pretty much I think what um the out of the box ClickUp AI has probably done. It's just like in the
Cool.
back end, just like has all these formats. But yeah, that's
Very
a great
cool.
use case, and I've surveyed our own team on it, and it's been a game changer for us.
Love that. Love that. And it's a good segue to point number 3 on the list, which was pretty eye-opening for me. And I had never really thought about this before. I'm curious to get your reaction to this, Amrita, which is some of the highest value content that marketing teams have is locked in the heads of your solutions engineers, your sales engineers. They are the ones presenting the product, answering the technical questions, doing a lot of the objection handling, doing the double click into how the product actually works. And that middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel content is hugely valuable. But if you try and get a sales engineer to write a 1,200 word piece for your blog, good luck. Good luck. They don't have time. They don't have time. It's just not the right way to leverage them. And so if you can take their transcripts from all their sales calls and you can run that through an AI workflow that takes that transcript and turns it into a 1,200 word piece, now you're really cooking. And you can start to create this really incredible flywheel where all of your sales calls create more content. That content then becomes published content in your blog. That blog ends up converting a lot better, which creates more sales calls, creates more transcripts, and the flywheel starts to spin. And this for me was so eye-opening when we started doing it internally at Copy.ai. And it's something that we help a lot of our customers do. And it's wild. Our demo requests tripled from our blogs after we started publishing this kind of solution-oriented content, because it's so rich and it's what people want to do. And it's problem-oriented, solution-oriented. And it's just an absolute no-brainer for how to turn live events, whether that's a demo meeting or a webinar like this one or whatever it is, into really solid written pieces using AI.
Kyle, how many transcripts did you feel like you needed before it got really good and robust?
Yeah, it's a great question. The most important input, Amrita, is actually an example of what a good finished piece looks like. So our head of content strategy, his name is Nathan, said, I want to follow this exact format. Introduce the problem, tee up the solution, double click into that solution, technical detail, call to action, like whatever it is. And he outlines that. And then the AI is unbelievably good using, again, our workflow engine to follow that format, tease out the right parts of the transcript and get it right. And the really cool thing, if I can I steal the screen real quick, Scott? Is that legal?
Yeah. Yep. Go for it.
So the really cool thing is that now all of the sales calls that we have automatically create these pieces of content triggered off of the transcripts that are created. So now we have all of this content that's here, and you see there's 8,700 rows in this table. That's obviously more content that we could publish for the rest of our
Oh
lives.
my God.
But when Nathan, our head of content, needs to say, I'm going to do something on campaign execution or something like that. My content calendar for August is all around campaigns. Okay, cool. I've got the 180 articles here, and I can kind of scroll through them, look at I don't know why that row is so long, look at the content, etc. Unleashing the power of AI for lightning fast campaign content creation. Cool. And then he can fulfill his content calendar just like this. Old way,
Sick.
new way, impact, call to action. And we can like do all the backlinking, and you can set up all the, like, it's just amazing the velocity that you're able to create and the richness of the way that we talk about our solution, because again, it's based on the way our solutions team is presenting things. So turning transcripts into waterfall content is like an absolute no-brainer. If you're not already doing this today, like, start.
Yeah, no, I love that example because I mean, I'm a big fan of this as well. And we do that with all of our like top, middle, bottom funnel content and take like those live events and of course turn them into whatever other written pieces. Sometimes we'll like do like snippets and turn them into like TikTok videos or YouTube videos and merge them with other content. And that's like a playbook that we've operated and been able to scale. But this, like what you just talked about, is like actually like so neat because to your point earlier, you're kind of using like the insights part of your workforce, like the insightfulness that classic, content that you scrape is not going to give you, and putting that to good use. So that's super cool.
Very well said.
Yeah, the just to jump off of that, the sort of other dual piece to this is content creation is like a huge piece of the puzzle. And then there's like the sort of experimentation and A/B testing or whatever you call it, like all of this like testing that you might do, whether it's on a landing page, whether it's like in a workflow, whether it's like your UX, all of that can be sped up with AI quite a bit. And just like essentially, like I think you called the workflow engine, Kyle. I love that phrasing because like you want to set up these different workflows so that you can replace a ton of like the classic manual steps. Um, you know, there's so many good examples out there. But really, like before I get into the examples, I think like the creating the collecting and the analyzing of that sort of as real time as possible, like that data, and then creating value with that data, and then testing lots of different hypotheses with that and simultaneously. That's like really, really, really hard to do. The best example we've all seen, I think, is like Google, Netflix, Amazon. Like Google speeds up their code reviews using AI. Like I read somewhere that it was like 48x or something. That's insane speed now with AI. So they've sped up their code reviews. Netflix, of course, uses their content recommendation engine. That's gotten a lot better with AI. So now like they're like hooked you even more into Netflix. So because it's like right content, right viewer, right time. It's tailored to each of their users. And so now they can actually like not only do they know your preferences, but they kind of like know your other like dark patterns, et cetera, and they can match to that, which has been great. And they can test like multiple hypotheses with that. Amazon, of course, can increase their like checkout rates, like in their cart, because now again, the right offers for the right people, which is kind of scary because part of me is always like, ooh, they know so much about stuff that I don't even know about myself. But I've definitely seen that at Amazon. And then there's like, listen, like I've seen amazing companies launch like cool little products that help with, I mean, e-commerce, and like the biomedical field is like super rich with this. There's so many, not only pharma, like not only big pharma, but like little biomedical companies that can now do testing at scale using AI on a number of different sort of like what is it called? Like preclinical drug development. So my cousin who works in that field, she said that at any given time they run upwards of like 7,000 tests to develop like maybe one like drug or whatever. And that takes years and years and years. Sometimes it takes like 10 years. And now AI can speed so many parts of that process up, and really like help them get like better results faster. So I think if you're a company that has access to vast amounts of data, AI is a no-brainer because you can actually like fine-tune many parts of the process just using this tooling. And there's tons of great out-of-the-box tooling, of course. So like my favorite example, my low-key example to give is like HubSpot. Like half the world uses HubSpot, particularly if you're an SMB. And it's like now you can do all of the A/B testing on subject lines, all the usual stuff that we do. We can do all of that on HubSpot because they've baked AI into their product. So, there's tons of great out of the box tooling that you can start using like yesterday.
Love that. Love that. Such a good advice. I'm gonna keep us moving here because we're taking more time, and Scott's like giving us the hurry up. So number 5. This one's pretty counterintuitive, and I think it's really interesting. The way that a lot of teams will develop content is they'll have this cabal of outsourced freelancers, writers, agencies, something like that. And at least in my experience, I'm not sure if you've had this, Amrita, like you water down your brand voice by outsourcing it to people that have their own writing style, their own brand voice. And so I found it to be kind of a frustrating process to like work with a PR agency to write the executive content, but then I have to basically rewrite it to maintain the brand voice and the exec's voice and all the rest. AI is really good at this. You can define what your brand voice is and then have the AI maintain that consistency in all of the different pieces that you have. You can define what you want your individual voice to be for different executives who are thought leaders or whatever it is. And the AI doesn't have a brain of its own. So it uses those instructions and follows the brand voice really well. So sort of a counterintuitive example that some people may be like, wait, what? But it really is amazing where the right purpose-built type solutions for authoring content should have brand voice as an input. And of course, any AI generated anything is completely reliant on the inputs that you give it. So the inputs you give, if that brand voice is well defined, then the AI does a really nice job of keeping it consistent.
You know what would be cool if you could like feed a piece of content to the AI and it gives you like a big X or like a big like checkbox, like yes, pass.
You did
like,
it.
Pass. Yeah, you did it. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be like a neat like little gimmick. You guys should build that.
On it. I'll get to the product team.
Awesome. Well, cool. Those were the 5 do's of using AI in marketing. If you have a favorite that seemed like, that you're going to use that, put that into use, or you feel like we missed any, feel free to share it in the chat. But we're going to keep moving right along and pivot to kind of the 5 things we want to avoid when using AI. And like any tool, there's the right ways and wrong ways to use it. But I'm going to turn it over again to Kyle and Amrita to just really go through 5 examples of how you don't want to be using it. So
I think you're up, Amrita.
Yeah. Well, this one's a little bit obvious. We just went through so many great examples, but I can't think of, I think just the state of LLMs today specifically, until we have like AI that's developed consciousness or whatever, which I hope doesn't happen. In most cases, you need some human involvement. Particularly this stuff, like the way I think about it is like you can't be involved in everything. Like something that's been like workflowed, like and is like looking at like data, that usually is fine. But stuff that's like high risk or highly nuanced, like the example that Kyle gave earlier about listening to the sales engineers' calls and the sales reps' calls and turning that into a blog post, probably needs like there's a lot of nuance because an LLM can only like understand words like strung together. So I think some human intervention and insight and oversight in general is like required across a lot of those things. And let's say you have 5 things that you're using AI for hypothetically, just stack rank them in your head, and like which ones are like high risk, which ones require more nuance, and just like spend a little extra time on those things. So this is really not, it's not like a don't, but it's more like a guardrail. So just think about carving out time, and don't just like blindly trust whatever workflow tools and AI tools you're using.
Really well said. Really well said. And actually, it's a good segue to the next don't, which is don't outsource your strategy. So I think like you can't just blindly trust the AI to deliver. And as I just mentioned a moment ago, the quality of your inputs dictate the quality of the outputs. And the way that I think about the right way to get value out of AI is to create this kind of AI sandwich where human strategy is on the front end. You codify that strategy with AI. And then there's always human in the loop on the back end to do the fit and finish and the polish and all the rest of the work. And sort of the rule of thumb that I have and we use internally and with our customers for long form content is every 1,000 words that AI creates, you probably still need about 30 minutes of editing at kind of in a ballpark, 30 minutes of editing per 1,000 words. So if it's a 1,200 word case study, expect about 30 minutes of editing. If it's a 3,000 word SEO piece, expect an hour, hour and a half of editing. And that's the way I think about things. But the strategy on the front end is really, really critical because you need, as I mentioned before, that great version of what you want the output to look like and why, so that you can codify that and mirror that as best as possible with AI. You need to know what personas, what markets, what industries, what segments, all of those things. Like the AI can't figure that out for you. You can use AI as a brainstorm partner to develop that strategy, but expecting the AI to just do it all for you is crazy. And like Amrita just said, until we have the generative AI that is globally thinking, the general AI, I should say, that can just kill us all, like I hope that never happens. And until it does, you can't outsource your thinking entirely to AI.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. My favorite one is when CEOs say, "Hey, just use AI to understand buyers." And it's like, what do you mean? Like literally, like what do you mean? So I did this um just this fun exercise. I'll just share my screen real quick. I mean, it's not even that fun. It's kind of lame. But I just worked with Claude, and I understand, and I put out this like pretty detailed query. I said, "Hey, can you help me understand typical accountants and bookkeepers? I'm helping a friend with some fractional work, and they're a startup, and they're going after these accountants and bookkeepers, and it's like they have their own like way of thinking about it, so that they're smaller shops, they have less than 100 clients, blah blah blah. What are their pains and desires? What do they care about? Are there nuances that you can highlight for me, right?" And it gets you pretty far. Like, so you start reading this and you're like, oh shit, okay. And like, what are their banking needs? Oh, I can get up to speed pretty fast. And then, by the way, here are the nuances between large firms and boutique shops. And like a CEO sees this, and he or she is like, oh, great, awesome. Now you guys can turn this out in 2 days, right? Like you know all the buyer personas and all the stuff that they care about. And what I've actually found is that this can give you a head start on where to look and what to look for, but it's not necessarily all encompassing. And you still want to rely on actual customer interviews, actual prospect interviews. If you happen to have a sales team or some other PLG motion, you want to look at the behavior patterns, like how people click through, where do they fall off, what does the funnel look like. You want to look at all of those data points, and you want to be quite inclusive of all of these different elements to actually form a proper picture of like, who is your buyer, what do they care about, what are their jobs to be done, rather than just like deal with AI. Particularly, like, I think B2C probably suffers from this quite a bit, where you could argue that every human has been mapped to some degree. I heard someone say at a conference, I won't say who because it's a pretty famous person, and that person was like, um, the human genome has been mapped, and so like, why do we spend thousands and thousands of dollars and hours on like mapping buyer personas, and it's just bullshit. And I'm just like, ugh, like, no, so not true. And I know I'm a marketer and I'm biased, but it's so not true. So get these AI tools to like get you on your way, but listen to your customers.
100%. And again, a really nice segue into number 4 here, which is this sort of interesting juxtaposition that I find on the spectrum, where you have, on the one hand, people that are very skeptical of AI. And on the other hand, people that expect AI to be completely perfect and like, why can't it just do everything? And so, yeah, maybe it's number 5 here. I went out of order. Don't expect perfection. Like you can't, it's impossible right now in the current state of modeling. And hopefully for all of our sake, we never get to the point where the AI outputs are perfect. You need to put in the real effort, just like any other process codification. You need to put in the effort to codify and work with the tools to get the right outcomes. And so the AI isn't at either end of that spectrum. It's not complete garbage and it's not completely perfect. It's somewhere in the middle. And as long as you recognize that, then you're not going to get frustrated. I see people on both ends of that spectrum that just get frustrated because they're like, oh, I said, write me a blog post and the blog post sucked. It's like, well, okay, so your prompt was 5 words. Like, of course it was a terrible output. And then I see other people on the other end that expect like the outputs to be completely perfect after they fine tune it one time. And this, neither end is right. So make sure that you're putting in the elbow grease, make sure that it's constantly evolving, just like your processes, your strategies are constantly evolving, and it takes upkeep. And so it's just like working in many ways. It's like working with a junior level content writer, a junior level intern, a junior level campaign manager, where you need to constantly be iterating and feeding the information that you need to create the right outputs. So there you go. It's not ever going to be perfect. And that's a good thing for us because it means we all still have jobs. And now we can go back in time to number 4.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add, and this is like also an obvious one, is that and I know it's hard to define like what is creativity, etc. I'll just talk in the marketing context for a second. There's always campaign ideas, content ideas, actual like hard creative, visuals, look and feel that kind of like mean the difference between like, is this successful or is this not? And I don't think we're there yet where AI can be quite as opportunistic and connect the dots as quickly as we can. Maybe there's a scenario in the future that would happen, but I don't know that can happen right now, right this second. We have so many examples from like various jobs that I've had. You know, there was this one very famous example where the CEO of a really big competitor, like a heavyweight in our space, was saying something publicly about ClickUp in a conference setting. There was like thousands of people watching, and he mentions us like in a way to kind of like shame us, and like we just took that sentence, jumped on it, and like created like a viral trend based on that. And it was like very like sort of in the moment, extremely opportunistic. It needed to be done like very quickly, and someone would have had to connect the dots on like, oh, what did he say, and like what are we going to say, almost like in retaliation, right? And like that went super viral. That was amazing. But I don't know that we would have been able to do that with AI. That's just like one example. When I worked for my previous company, Superside, we were known for our creative. Like that was like our whole shtick. So our marketing needed to be particularly like out there and really great. And so I'll just show like an example of this is like one of the guides that we produced. It was kind of done at a time where the economy was like at a really high, like high, and then it started like tanking. This is like early 2023, late 2022. And we said, hey, let's write this guide on driving growth with all these like smart bets. And we were trying to come up with the concept of it and the creative of it. And this is kind of where we landed, where it's like, it's been done before. Like, you're like a sailor or captain of a big ship and you're trying to steer the ship and it's stormy waters. Like that analogy has been like beaten to death, but we wanted to do it in a new, fresh way. And so as you scroll this, and I'll throw it in the chat here, it really like brought certain things to life. And let me find the one that I love the most. Sorry, I should have scrolled to that. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my Lord, this is long. I forgot about this.
46-minute read. This is impressive.
I know. It is. It's like it's a proper like guide, and it's
yeah,
like
it's
you can
great.
obviously jump and skip, but like just like concepts like this that make it like more engaging for the viewer, like the big octopus tentacles coming out and like there to grab you, and layoffs and budget cuts. Like this whole thing took some time to bring to life, but there's like a very stark example. Sorry, guys, I should have like oh, here we go. Okay, perfect. So we gave it like a prompt, our creative director, Piotr, he gave it a prompt, and we wanted to like illustrate something like a lighthouse with like these beams, and it's like showing all of the right, like, paths for the ship to like voyage, yada yada. And so this is what Midjourney came up with like lots of prompting. And this is like the final design, of course. And as you can see, like they're similar concepts, but not quite the same. And actually, we developed this further, and it became like something that broke the internet. Like we used a lot of this in our advertising. We spent a ton of time and money testing this on social. And there was like these like whales and whatever else like swimming around. We actually got commentary on the internet where people would be like, how are whales swimming in the sky, and like all of this stuff. And it's like, it didn't matter because it created that conversation and that buzz. And again, I don't think we would have been able to break the internet quite like we did if we had just gone with like the standard like AI imagery, which was good, which was actually pretty good. I'd say like it brought us like 90% of the way, but it didn't bring us like the full like Kim Kardashian style break the internet,
Love that.
So yeah, just an example.
Can you share the link to that guide, Amrita?
I will do that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned it was while the economy was kind of doing a little bit of a nosedive. However, I'm sure that a lot of the lessons in there are timeless, and I want to read it.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much. I think that's it. So I think, Scott, we're back over to you.
Yeah, and I think we can just kind of end with closing remarks. Basically what we covered here, it obviously doesn't stop there. These were like 10 examples, but like the list could go on and on. And there are now dozens of AI powered tools that can help in countless ways. So, these are kind of jumping off points to start thinking about how you can use it, where it's like from automating admin processes to unlocking like new capabilities that weren't possible before. But yeah, I just kind of want to pose it to either of you. If you want to add anything about the state of AI in marketing today, or where you think things are heading, just as closing remarks. Maybe Kyle,
Amrita.
start with you.
Oh, you want to start with me? Okay. It's very similar to what Amrita just talked through. The vision that I have for AI is that we can outsource to AI the things that are time consuming, menial, not super high leverage, so that humans can be thoughtful, strategic, creative, like find areas that are high leverage, find ways to break the internet, do the things that really do move the needle. And frankly, like, I know it sounds kind of trite, but be more human. And that's kind of missing if in a lot of marketing teams, because there's so much to do that you end up just kind of going through the motions, and it just becomes kind of assembly line marketing versus really impactful high leverage marketing. So outsource what you can to AI, the mundane, the menial, the time consuming, the repetitive, and unlock or free up your human creativity so that you can deliver outsized results.
If anyone's a fan of Star Trek Next Generation specifically, I don't know if anyone's watched that. My whole like moral system's based on that whole series. But like there's, even if you're not familiar with it, the whole premise of that show is that there's such a level of like understanding of artificial intelligence and how it kind of intertwines with how we lead our lives, that major things like poverty, hunger, all of those have essentially been eradicated. And now that's freed up time for humans to go explore the universe and the galaxy. And so they like go on these like voyages to go do that, because all of the usual problems on Earth have been like essentially solved. So I hope we get there one day. I hope the robots don't take over. That's like my hope for, I guess, Earth and humanity in general. But in the meantime, everyone should just become an AI specialist. Everyone. It's like using a dishwasher or whatever, right? I'm not to like make it seem like a dishwasher, but it's sort of like, I guess it's sort of like any other everyday tooling that should just become part of our lives. And I'm not there yet. I'm certainly not. Like my initial instinct to solve something is not go find an AI tool. But I'm trying to train my brain to be able to do that, particularly if I know if it's going to be like a repeat thing that I need to do over and over. So there you go.
Awesome.
Love that.
Cool. Yeah. And I'll just kind of bring it home here. Just calling out that like AI is a tool. It is not, replacing human talent necessarily. Like it should not be taking the place. It's more so the best marketers find ways to use AI for the benefit. So, but I think a lot of people today probably joining like have some sort of resource gap on their team. And oftentimes it's because you can't afford a full-time hire if you're a smaller company, but there are other options too. So for example, hiring freelancers can allow you to really hire that top marketing talent still, like, that are very skilled at using AI in their day-to-day processes, but on your schedule and while sticking to a flexible budget. So don't want to spend too much time here, but if marketer hire really helps with the freelancers and like finding the best talent and then sizing it up for each client to make it successful. So if you're interested in learning more, feel free to visit marketerhire.com and our experts can match you with a perfect fit marketer in as little as like 48 hours. But from there, that kind of wraps up our presentation. If you have to leave, thank you for joining us. But if you can stick around, we do have quite a few questions that came in. So we'll do our best to answer a couple of those really quickly. So appreciate it. One question I really was thinking it would be great for Kyle, working with such an AI-centric tool. What are some tips this was a great question. What are some tips for using better prompts to get better copywriting results from AI?
Yeah, I have a sort of counterintuitive take on this because I've seen it. It's really hard. Like prompting is difficult. It's like learning a new language. Manipulating these LLMs is not easy. And so the solution that I've seen a lot of other companies implement is they have one person or a subset of people that are really great at prompt writing. And maybe they have an AI background or something like that. And they create the prompts that the rest of the team uses over and over and over again. Or they create the workflows that are multi-step prompts that the rest of the team uses over and over and over again. And so I think it's pretty unreasonable, frankly, to expect the entire go-to-market team to become prompting experts, especially salespeople. Like they're just not going to do it. So if you take the onus upon yourself to be the one that goes and learns, like awesome, and more power to you. And I can share a prompting course with you. But if you're a CMO and you expect all 30 or 40, 50, whatever people on your team to go and learn this, it's probably not going to happen. So just be realistic. Change management is hard. And this is a new skill that's very hard to learn. And I would say you're probably better off identifying a subset of people within your team to go be the experts that then provide the leverage for the rest of the company.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting to think about how much can go into prompting to actually get that great result. Like everyone thinks of it as like a super easy thing off the bat. And then it definitely can get very detailed and nuanced to get a good result. So awesome. I'm going to skip to also, how should marketers approach copyright concerns when using AI generated content for SEO and other marketing activities?
This one for me.
Sir. Yeah, I think you might have good thoughts on this again as like an AI centric tool.
Yeah. So again, it's a lot about the inputs that you give it. If all you do is go to Claude or ChatGPT right now and you say, write me an SEO piece on this, it's gonna be bad. If you instead you have a different or more complex series of inputs that are your unique value prop for that SEO keyword, and your, like Amrita was mentioning before, your persona psychographics or buyer journey mapping or something like that. And if you can incorporate those unique insights into the prompt some way, somehow, then you will get a uniquely different response. And that will avoid any sort of copywriting concern because like the AI will be able to use all of the inputs and create something that is unique to all of the inputs that you give it. So you have to the short answer is be smart and more comprehensive about your inputs. And again, don't outsource your strategy, don't outsource the creativity, and make sure that you are giving the AI plenty to chew on to deliver truly differentiated results.
Nice. That's great. And I think we'll just have time for one more question. Feel free to still submit them or again, submit them via marketerhire.com and we'll get to them. But just for time's sake, one last question here was, how do you decide which AI platform to use for content or graphics or anything else? There's so many that it's overwhelming and time consuming to try them all. So kind of any advice on where to start for our audience?
Gosh, this is like a minefield. It really depends on the use case, honestly. And how often you need something. I mean, you could, if it's just like stuff that you need once in a while, or you're just trying to like brainstorm, of course you can use, you know, Midjourney or whatever else. But if you want like a repeatable workflow, like let's say hypothetically, you're constantly changing your whatever, your Lululemon or Aloe Yoga or whatever, and you're like, you have like thousands of SKUs and you're constantly changing images and you like need to do it by size and you sell like apparel and shoes and this and that, like that whole thing needs to be workflowed out. So it's not going to be any one platform. Like you probably need a combination of like 4 or 5 different things. And there is tooling out there, like out of the box tooling that I've found that helps support some of those like very common use cases. E-commerce in particular has been roughly like solved for almost entirely, that whole workflow. But it's it's less likely to find that elsewhere. But there's honestly, there's no one answer. I wish I could say, be like, oh, this one for this use case, but I don't know that mapping quite exists. The good news is there's new tooling coming out every single day. Like Canva just released something. There's all these amazing tools that come out every single day. That I think it just requires like a quick Google search and just being like up on it and just like trying it for yourself. You have to try things for yourself to know like what sticks and what works for you.
I think that's right. And I would say something to avoid is like Copilot sprawl. Just be careful that you're not bringing on all of these different AI solutions for all of these like really bespoke things. Like I have an AI solution that dots the I's and crosses the T's. Like, okay, that's probably a little too in the weeds. Like try and make sure that the AI solutions that you do bring on have more of a broad type of purview, a more horizontal purview, so that you can squeeze more juice. You don't want to end up in the situation that many companies are in now, where they have all the SaaS application sprawl. You don't want to replicate that with generative AI. Many generative AI tools can do multiple different things. So I would say probably try and make sure that there's several different use cases, at least, that you're solving with the same product, and just try and get more bang for your buck.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice.
Well, cool. I think we are starting to run out of time, so I'm gonna wrap things up here, I think. We'll respond to some of the questions that have come in that we didn't have time to respond to. Kyle, I see that there's a prompt guide if you have a link for that. But otherwise, really appreciate everyone joining today. Really appreciate our guests for coming and sharing their wisdom. You know, talking AI is exciting, but it's kind of cool to put these guardrails a little in, like what are kind of great use cases for it and what are not great use cases for it today. That can always change. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to discuss.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, friends.
See you, everyone.